sounded like my dating profile evaluation from my wife when we first met, but yeah, very useful, Bogues, for sure. That fucking stat line had more O's than a box of Cheerios.
Welcome to Rogue Bogues, another week of basketball news around the world, mainly the NBA playoffs have just heated up. We have Miami and Cleveland in the background right now at time of recording. Pro, what's going on?
Bogues, what's going on, brother?
Just excited to see the start of the playoffs, some real basketball. It's amazing how much it changes when these games start. It's a bit more, taken a bit more seriously.
Some of these games are real basketball. Some of them have not been
Memphis,
real basketball, but
Memphis,
oh,
OKC.
man.
Is that who you
That was a rough one.
Yeah. Almost an NBA record, lost by 49, was it? I think 130.
Oh no, I'm pretty sure it was an NBA record. It was the largest
was it
loss in first round history or something, 51 points.
But I think it's the largest loss in playoff history, right?
Not in playoff history, but
first
it
round
was
history.
it was definitely
51 points.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable because they stopped them for 15 minutes straight. Oklahoma City didn't score a basket. Now, halftime ended and they have to go out for the second half, but for 15 minutes, finally, OKC didn't score a point for them. So I thought it was pretty good, pretty good defensive technique by the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, that was ugly. But we'll get into some news real quick and then we'll touch on the playoffs and the play-ins and wrap all that up from last week.
Sure.
The Kings have fired their GM. Monty McNair is gone. He's gone after, obviously, they fired Mike Brown during the season. Now he's gone. I just think that Vivek should just take over as GM. Pro, I don't know what your thoughts are.
Well, he already hired a guy, Scott Perry. So Scott Perry's already got the job.
There you go. Well, he can't take his own job then.
No.
Where was he? He's formerly of New York, right? Was he many years ago?
He was New York and then Detroit. He was most famous in Detroit, who was in Orlando with Rob Hennigan about 10, 11 years ago. Then he was with New York for a while. And then when Leon Rose came in, he was sort of demoted. And then he just I think he was out for about a year and then they hired him. I mean, look, Vivek just wants somebody he can control. And, it's such a volatile organization with the amount of head coaches they've had, the amount of management they've had. For one reason or another, I don't know if you could show me evidence saying that they're a stable organization. They just keep going through players, they go through coaches, they go through GMs, and that's the part of the problem in Sacramento. Besides you are in it's a zombie apocalypse in downtown Sacramento. I mean, it's unbelievable. Any zombie movie
downtown is
shot.
Yes, downtown is, but the outskirts aren't bad. Like, they're starting to build up. It's slowly getting there. There's a lot of people from the Bay Area.
But boats within 5 miles of the arena.
Yes, correct.
It's a Thriller video. Go look up Thriller from Michael Jackson. It's a fucking Thriller video. All right. You need a crucifix, garlic, fucking spears. You need anything to get yourself fucking from your hotel to the arena. It's disgusting. But forget about Sacramento and the beauty of that town. It's just a raw. I mean, they just keep going. I mean, look what they're doing, Bogues. I mean, they get rid of their coach, they get rid of the GM, they got rid of De'Aaron Fox and got literally nothing in return. So you got limited assets. They're talking about trading Sabonis. I don't know where you go from here, Bogues. You got two ISO players in DeRozan and Levine. Nothing you could really build on besides Sabonis, and he's a good player, but they're in a world of trouble. And Jeremy Lamb's running the organization, dating the daughter. I don't know where you go with all this stuff, man.
But the Mike Brown one's a bad one. Look. Love or hate Mike Brown, he can get in his own way sometimes, reportedly, where we can be a bit hard ass with some guys. But they finally had a bit of success. They finally had a method to the madness of the way they played. You could see kind of what they were trying to do. Had a bit of toughness about them. They won some games after not winning for decades plus. And then obviously some players complained that Mike Brown was too hard on them, and they fire him. And you're just like, that is a prime opportunity for you as an ownership group, as the GM, to say, you know what, look in the rearview mirror, look at our last 20 odd years. We've been shit. We have a bit of success. Some of it's because of the roster. Some of it's because of our coach. We're back in the coach. It's Miami. they should have done something like Miami does, right? Sit down, shut the fuck up. This is our guy. You don't want to be here. We'll get you out of here. But at least they had something. Now, Christie wasn't awful, finished the season okay, but they finally had a coach that had something to him, gone. Had Mike Malone, similar story, gone. You know, you're just like, they're just getting their own way. I totally agree with you. And it just does not seem like it's going to get any better anytime soon. And they're in a real world of hurt with their roster build. Like it's, like you said, I think the Sabonis trades come up because they might get something back for him. Other than that, there's nothing on that roster that anyone would want. They got the young guy, the shooter as well. What's his name, bro?
The kid from Iowa.
Murray
has a brother.
Murray.
Murray. Murray.
He's a guy that can get hot for him. He's probably a piece that someone would like as well. But other than that, what are you getting from that roster? You know, it's Chicago 2.0 from 2 years ago.
Well, yeah, I mean, you need consistency with your roster. You need consistency with your coaching staff. And look, you took De'Aaron Fox's side if there was a problem there. You know, it seems like, again, without being in the building, it's hard to say, but you got Mike Brown, you got De'Aaron Fox. They didn't like each other, it seemed like. Then Mike Brown goes, and then you're like, okay, fine. Going forward, De'Aaron Fox, boom. Then you trade De'Aaron Fox for literally nothing. The Indians that Scott sold New York, that they got like 8 shillings for the whole state of New York, right? They're just shaking their head and like, what the fuck did you get in this deal? Because our deal's like kingdom come compared to what you got. And you got nothing back. So I just don't understand what you're doing now. Now you got another GM, it's just it's just tough to take that job because it's going to be a shit show. I mean, it's the first and the 15th. It's nice, but like you're not really running your own show. It seems like, again, we're not in the building. We don't know, but it just seems like that. And they could have actually turned the corner a few years back, but you wanted to draft Marvin Bagley over Luka Doncic. That was a swing and a fucking miss.
It was,
so
but even
one.
After that, like, look, they still had Herder, they still had Fox, they still had some pieces that were decent. Just keep them together for 3 or 4 years and just see what happens.
Going back, do you keep Halliburton now with this kind of?
I think that trade was okay. I think both teams won. Halliburton, Sabonis, I think both teams won that in their own way. Sabonis has been really good for him. Yeah, like almost triple-double guy. Like he's big rebound nights. Halliburton's been good. Pro and I have had this discussion where I think one of those rare trades where you're like, fuck both teams. Yeah, there's no real loser, right?
In Carlisle's system, Halliburton was much better than Sabonis. And Sabonis, the way they want to play, being tough, elite rebounder, not great defensively, but as far as a rim protector, but a big time rebounder, can score. His shooting's gotten better over the years, so I mean he's been really good for them.
Yeah, but I just think they had some younger pieces, like I said, Herder, Fox, Sabonis. Sabonis isn't younger. You got Murray in there. Just roll the dice, keep them together. I think the thing in the NBA is like, you got to be honest with yourself. Was Sacramento going to be a championship team? Fuck no, right? Not in the next 2 or 3 years. So why not actually try to have some longevity of keeping a group together? They know each other backwards. Keep it together for 2, 3, 4 years and see how it goes. I mean, you're a small market. You can't. The Lakers can be reactive. New York can be reactive. Golden State can be reactive because they're going to get the prime free agents. I think Sacramento, Milwaukee, Indiana, they got to be much more patient. You got to roll the dice, but that word is taboo in the NBA. From the development side, Pro, something you're probably passionate about, but Peter Patton fired from Chicago. This news broke last week. Why is that important? He's the shot guru there in Chicago, and why it has become news is because players are livid behind the scenes. Apparently, they have numerous players have gone either to the media or through their agent to the media asking what the fuck is going on. Heavily loved by the players. Josh Giddey, primary example, got his 3-point shot to 37% this season after a horrid start, might I add, at the start of the season. Shot it at an elite number, especially post All-Star break. He's now gone, and there's people left scratching their heads. You got anything more on that, Pro, as to why?
No, I don't. I mean, I've worked with Peter for a year in Dallas, and he was fantastic. He's one of the best shooting coaches I've ever worked with. And I always praise him as much as I can with anybody that does well in Chicago in any of his stops. It's just, it makes no sense. I mean, the front office brought him in. The coaching staff, I don't believe, brought him in. And that was his guy. That was their guy. He ran player development. From what I've heard, every player that worked with him, they really liked him. He's a guy that will tell you the truth. And, he doesn't have a lying bone in his body. He really could teach shooting. You've got most of these staffs in the NBA filled with 19 like Instagram trainer type guys that teach you nothing. This guy actually teaches something that you could actually get better on. I mean, Jalen Brunson swore by him when he was in Dallas. He goes to Chicago. Those guys are doing really well. My guess from what I've heard, that front office in Chicago, they want yes men around him, and he is the ultimate non-yes man, Peter. Peter's just going to tell you what he thinks, if you ask him, he's going to tell you. And most people, Bogues, they say they like that. Nobody likes that. I mean, there are very, very few people on the planet that wants the truth. And Peter, I mean, Peter could teach anybody how to shoot, and he's great. And for those guys to do that, especially when you bring the guy in, you brought the guy in to clean everything up on the development side. He did that, but again, we're not in the building, we don't know. But that's a huge loss for Chicago. So I don't, I have no idea what they're doing. But again, we're talking about shit show organizations. They haven't been one, they haven't been one. You wouldn't think, like, you think Chicago, you think big market, they've done all right. Of course, the last couple of years been up and down, but like, you think they were going in the right direction, especially how they finished the season. I mean, the last 20 games, they were really solid, and they were beating some teams. They've got a little bit of a talent problem, but at least they've got Giddey. At least they get guys that, Vucevic, right? They got money, cap space. They got a really good coach. You think they were going in the right direction. And then this happens. And I was shocked. I mean, you got, you're building your team around Giddey, White, and Buzelis, and you got Vucevic there, trade chip, or you could keep him. Your bench is okay, with Herter and Zach Collins and whatnot. But yeah, that took me by surprise, Bogues. I wasn't happy about that.
Yeah, low-hanging fruit goes. I mean, it's just strange. You ever really see development guys go that way unless something with the head coach. But yeah, the reports were that, the front office there do not like kind of his direct demeanor. So yeah, that's interesting. And just touching on Instagram trainers, I tweeted about it last week, that I'm sick of seeing, at least here in Australia, trainers in Crocs. It's doing my head in. It's a big fad over here in Australia. Kids are wearing Crocs. It's a cool thing. I get it, but wearing them into the arena, no problem. But I've seen, parents are paying some of these trainers, $80, $100 an hour to train their kids, and the least you can do is put shoes and socks on. And I got some pushback on socials, I assume from trainers that wear Crocs. But it's like the bare minimum for me is, if you're a trainer, is put some shoes and socks on. Like, if you can't have the motivation to sit on a chair and bend one leg and put a sock on and then do it on the other side with a shoe. And I've seen numerous guys on the court trying to give examples of how to do footwork and drills in Crocs. Just like, the Crocs, like I've sat and watched a guy almost do his ankle because the Croc rolled over itself. Like, I'm just like, what do you like? So my point was, if you're a parent, you're paying someone an elite trainer and he's in Crocs, fire them and find someone else, period. I don't care how good they are. Now, there were people saying, looks can be deceiving and all this kind of bullshit. Yes, there's the other extreme of the trainer with every gadget and device and fresh fits and the brand new J's that wouldn't know how to, train a dog. Get that totally, but this is the other extreme. I think the bare minimum professionalism is at least put some shoes on, pro.
You got to be professional, Bogues. I don't care what you know, what you don't know. Some trainers that aren't really that great as far as what they do on the court, but they're really professional. They can really get through the players. But now you've got a lot of people who just want to look cool on the court, and they see the kids wear them and they want to wear them. And it just, you need professionalism. I don't really speak badly. I mean, I like to joke around, but I don't like to badmouth, any type of trainer. Look, everybody teaches the game a little bit different, and that's okay. But when you come into the court with Crocs on, I always joke around with the trainers that wear tights and all that stuff, and I just think it's funny. But it is what it is. It's still what some coaches do wear 'em. But like when you go into the extreme of wearing, I'm not even a big fan of guys who wear their hat on backwards and things like that. I'm not a fan of that. But professionalism, dress like a coach at least. T-shirt, shorts, sweats, what have you, shoes. But to do that, yeah, when you sent me the picture, I was like, what the fuck is going on with this?
Yeah, I think shoes is the bare minimum. And now people will say, well, I had some guy saying I volunteer, and I'm like, cool, volunteer and just put some shoes on.
Yeah.
Like, that should be no excuse.
Yeah.
And it just
Yeah.
why it pisses me off is because there's been I don't know what it's like in the US. I'm sure it's the same. There's a lucrative market now in these trainers that get a name around certain suburbs or cities or towns, and they just fleece parents. Like, train with me, I'll get your kid to the NBA, NBL or NBA, and some of them are not very good, and then the kid doesn't make it. It's like, oh, I didn't work hard enough. So you know what I mean? Just don't make those promises. Be professional. Have the kids work, and everything will be fine. But I think it's a little frustrating for me to see that, and I know if it was my child or me and I saw that, I would take my kid straight out and find another trainer who probably wasn't as good but put shoes on. I think that's probably the big prerequisite.
Bogues, most of these trainers couldn't coach the 96 Bulls to the play-in tournament. I mean, it's fucking amazing how these parents are getting fleeced by these guys. A lot of them just like they'll go around the hotel lobbies of the like the Crescent in Dallas, and they'll go take a picture with like Luka. They'll take a picture of like all these players, put it on, hey, train with me, charge them hundreds of dollars. Parents end up paying like $8,000, $9,000, $10,000 a year, if minimum, working out with these guys for 3-4 years, and it gets them nothing. But they feel as though because they got a good social media game, they know what they're doing. It's it's pretty rough, man. It is pretty rough.
And for parents listening, ask around for names. Don't believe social media. A lot of self promo, which I guess is part of the parcel.
You need to do
2025, that, right? But still, the word of mouth thing is where you'll find most of your. Go to your local stadium. Hey, what that trainer? He works at this stadium. I'll go ask some people there. I'll go ask, why did he leave these former jobs? What was this, or she was this trainer? What happened? Were they good or no? They're not that good. Be careful. That's how you'll find the face-to-face shit. People won't put it in writing. Don't email them. Don't text them. Don't tweet them. Go and ask in person, and you'll get, I'm looking for my kid to find a good trainer. Is this a good option? People will give you the honest truth that way. But that's the way I would do it. It's hard.
At very least, go to their social media, look what they're doing on the court. Go to a coach, go to your kid's coach that he plays for during the year, and say, hey, can you look at this for 5 or 6 minutes? Can you take a look at like these 8 or 9 reels I'll send you? Does this guy know what he's doing? Or should he be locked up in a fucking straitjacket like the guy from Silence of the Lambs? Whichever fucking one you want, that's great. But can you just evaluate it? Is that something my kid should be doing? Especially when you don't know. And most parents don't know. Just go and ask somebody, and they'll be okay. But there's a lot of bullshit out there for sure.
Yeah, there is. And look, that hurts the whatever percent you think are good, whether it's 10%, 15%, they also get a bad name, but you just don't. And then it also hurts, kids and parents then become alienated from the game. They become bitter about the game. They turn their back on basketball. They turn their back on supporting the NBL, the NBA, and then it becomes it's just a whole bad cycle. So we want to keep, kids in the game as much as we can. You just sometimes got to give them the honest truth. Gayle Benson overruled David Griffin earlier this season, when he asked to fire head coach Willie Green and to elevate James Borrego for the job. Green has support from the ownership of the Pelicans and could remain head coach now that Griffin has been fired and replaced by Joe Dumas. So,
what do you think about that, Bogues?
Interesting. I think this was a typical GM versus coach battle at some point in the season that presented itself. That was Griffin's side of things would be, I brought you the roster. Why aren't we winning? green side would be you didn't bring me the roster. That's why I'm not winning. This roster's not good. And it's had to be basically had to be mediated by the owner. That's how I see this. And owner sided with the coach. So as you said, you've said numerous times on this podcast, Pro, the coach must have got to that owner's room before the GM did. And now they've got Joe Dumas, and we'll see what can happen. But Joe's did a fantastic job in Detroit back in the day and got that all humming. And we'll see if he can do that in New Orleans.
Yeah, it's just typical. When things are going sideways, it's just like I said, nuclear arms race to get to the owner to try to secure your own job. And look, I think most coaches probably feel as though they should be picking the players because they're coaching them, and most GMs think that the coaches should be playing the guys that they draft, and they should have sort of a lot of say of who plays what and when. And that's the problem with the NBA model. See, in the NFL and American football, most of the coaches, in my opinion, I think a lot of them are the GM. They make the decision of the players. The problem with that is I feel as though a lot of head coaches are really bad evaluators. It's hard enough to keep up with 82 games, playoffs, locker room development, all this stuff, and then also run a draft, run trades, free agency. So you need it separated. The problem is that's where you come into. Like the coach the coach feels as though they have say on those things, and no one really knows. I don't know really who. I guess every organization is a little bit different of who has a little bit of control over those things. But my opinion, coaches should control what they're running offensively, defensively, the minutes, keeping in mind that if you do draft some guys, you've got to carve out minutes for those young guys that and communicate with your front office. Your front office got to understand that, look, you drafted the players, but coaches are trying to win games, because if they don't win games and they try to develop, you're going to fire them and say, well, you didn't win enough games. And then if they try to win games and don't play the young guys, well, you didn't develop our players enough. You're always on the edge. Look, every coach that steps into this thing is going to be on the hot seat at some point of their career. Is it now? Is it a year from now? Is it 10 years from now? Everyone's going to be on the hot seat, as we've been seeing the last few months. You're going to get there. So you're trying to stay relevant as far as as long as possible. So is the GM, and it's just a really tough thing. But you need it. You can't have coaches running your front office, and you can't have front office coaching teams. So they gotta live with each other. They gotta be on the same page. You're not gonna agree all the time. You're gonna have some healthy arguments, but you gotta be able to be on the same page of what you're gonna do as far as who's got control of what, and then understand that those young guys got to play at some point. But everybody's gonna throw everybody under the bus anyway at the end of the day. So it is what it is.
I agree, but a lot of turmoil down there. We spoke about it last week with the Dyson Daniels trade, now coming back to haunt them a little bit, but they are cleaning house, and we'll see what happens there. Awards finalists, Pro. I'll give you the three. Give me your pick. We'll go through these real quick. Sixth Man of the Year finalists: Patton Pritchard, Ty Jerome, or Malik Beasley. Who gets it from you, Pro?
I say Patton Pritchard. He's been phenomenal throughout the year.
I'm going to go Malik Beasley. I think Beasley's been really, really good off the bench.
Big time shooter.
Yeah, big time shooter. He's had some big scoring games for them. They're all tough picks, but I think Detroit's turnaround, a big part of that has been Beasley's shooting. Most improved player, you got Dyson Daniels, Ivica Zubac, and Cade Cunningham.
See, I'm going to take...
Cade's a tough one because his numbers were still decent last year.
I'm not going to take his improvement. The guy is a superstar. The guy got hurt, right? Most of the year last year, if I'm not mistaken.
He was in and
so
out,
to me, I wouldn't put him there. And Daniels was, in my opinion, almost out of the league. If people want to agree with that or not, I feel Zubac has made a huge jump in his development, but he's always been a good player. But I would say it's going to be Dyson Daniels, just because he went from on the bench, no real light in sight, to being one of the best defensive players in the league. So I'm going to say Dyson. Who do you got on that?
I think it's a tough one. The fact that Cade's in there, I mean, he's the best. Cade's probably the best player in there overall.
Yeah.
I think Zubac's growth around. He had a triple-double the other night. Like, his assist game's really grown. Something that you weren't throwing the ball to him to create ever previously. Now he's playing well out of that short role, and I think it's out of Zubac's and Daniels for me. But I think if I had to pick a winner, I would say Zubac's will win it. I think if I had to pick a winner out of those. Rookie of the year, Zachary Ricochet. Is that how you pronounce it? Beautiful. Stephon Castle and Jalen Wells, bro.
I'm going to say Castle from San Antonio. He's been really good. The French kid, the kid that you're talking about from Atlanta, he's had some ups and downs. He's had some really good games.
He got hot late, yeah.
But he got hot late. But I think Castle, I mean, it wasn't a great rookie class, let's be honest, as far as like a superstar, 100% rookie of the year, great players, this and that. They have a lot of guys that got in the rotation and got in the swing of things, and I think Castle's one of those guys.
I agree with that one. I'll go Castle. Coach of the year, Kenny Atkinson, JB Bickerstaff, Ime Udoka.
I say JB Bickerstaff.
Ooh, good one.
Atkinson, don't get me wrong, he's been great. And both those guys have made great jumps with their team. Maybe I'd probably go Kenny, but JB, I mean, I didn't think much of Detroit. I don't think a lot of people did. And to have them, much improved over the year, you got to give them a lot of credit. Didn't have all-stars in the roster, had a good young player in Cade Cunningham and a bunch of other guys that are decent. The one thing about Kenny is he did have a good roster with Mitchell and Allen and Garland and those guys. So I don't know. It's a toss-up. I don't know who, I don't know if anybody would be right or wrong, but yeah.
I think JB. I think JB's fair. I think touching on the stat last week, the biggest turnaround from win-losses to where they are now in a single season. It's got to give him the nod, but it's the award you don't want, right, Pro? Because we've seen most guys that win this award, they got it's like a stop clock of 2 years post that till they get fired.
Yeah.
So hopefully none of these guys do. But defensive player of the year, Dyson Daniels, Draymond Green, Evan Mobley.
Who are they again, Bogues?
Dyson Daniels, Draymond Green, Evan Mobley.
I would say Daniels, but how about this stat, Bogues? You got Wemby, who played 46 games, 176 blocks.
Yeah.
Right? You got the leader, I believe, in blocks.
Yeah, he did it, right?
Not leader. 148 for Lopez, who played 80 games.
Yeah.
That's pretty amazing. But yeah, I would go with Daniels. I think Daniels has been high-level elite defender all year. I think it's hard to argue to get, hard to argue if anyone, argues against him, but I'm open for all discussion.
Draymond's arguing against him.
Of course. Shocker.
I agree.
Shocker.
Dyson's numbers led the league in steals, and then not just stat defense. He's actually analytically one of the best in the league on the ball. I think Wemby, if he's playing 65 plus, will win 4 or 5 of these over his course of his career, because his steals numbers were big too. He was in all time territory for block steal combinations over a regular season if he would play the full course. So he'll win many more in the future, but I think this is Dyson Daniels. And the last one is MVP. SGA, Jokic, and Giannis are the 3 finalists. Who do you have?
I'm going Jokic.
Yeah, I'm going Jokic as well, again, because his numbers are just insane with all the turmoil they've had. They're still playing winning basketball. And he's, I just love the way he plays. I think SGA definitely has an argument, them being the number 1 seed all season. Giannis played very, very well, kept them in contention, but I think it's Jokic's to lose on that one. All right, we'll just wrap up the play-in results. So Miami control Chicago and Atlanta to get to the 8. Orlando take care of Atlanta to go to the 7. I just wanted to touch on Davion Mitchell. Did you watch that game, Pro? Miami v. Atlanta?
I did.
I think Davion Mitchell, for me, had one of the best overtimes I've seen in a long, long time. If you rewatch that game, and it's not so much statistically, I think he scored 8, I think, in that overtime period. but both ends of the ball. He caused 2 turnovers, 2 offensive fouls, hit 2 big threes, energy, infectious, up and down. It was a really amazing performance for a guy who's kind of been churned out a fair bit with his young journey in the NBA. You love to see him. Ends up in perfect Miami player, by the way, like a guy that culture, the way he plays. And I just wanted to give that a shout out that I thought I just both ends of the ball. He dictated that whole overtime period and just had an unbelievable 5 minutes and single-handedly won him that game.
Bogues is just stay prepared, stay ready, get your opportunity, and just be ready for it anytime it's given. And you never know in this league when it's given. And some players never get that opportunity to even show it. They just stick around on rosters, hang around the G League, and they just never get that chance. And it's really hard to do that and not know your role sometimes, not know where this is going to go, and to be able to be in that perfect situation of a Miami team where they just want toughness. They want guys who grind it out. They want guys who are just going to listen, yes sir, no sir, and just go and give you, 48 minutes or 2 minutes of the best basketball they can play. And that's what winning basketball is about. They didn't have a lot to celebrate all year. That's definitely something to celebrate for sure. And guy had a hell of an overtime. Had a good season this year, very productive. I think he averaged about 8 and 5. So, I mean, he was really, really good for them. So good for him. It's good to see.
Yeah, definitely. It's good to see non-star guys light up at this time of the season. So hopefully we'll see a few more. We were both wrong about Miami. They somehow managed to scrape through again, but we'll touch on that one. So it's currently 1-0. Cleveland just wrapped up Miami. Miami were resilient in that first game, but I have them I have the Cavs 4, Heat 1. You have the Cavs 4, Heat 2. So we're both pretty much the same there. It's just going to be hard. I mean, Miami just don't have the depth, but they are going to make Cleveland work for it in that series, bro.
Yeah, for sure. And I think as you're seeing in all these games, you need offense. I mean, defense really helps and things, but you definitely need offense to, you need guys that could put it in the hole, and you need shooting, and you need firepower. I just don't think Miami has enough firepower to get it through. They'll play hard, they'll scrape, and they'll do some things. Look, Cleveland didn't look great offensively in game 1, but these series they're long series. They're game by game. You got to make adjustments and things for sure. I just don't know where Miami's going to manufacture 15 more points to really keep it close with Cleveland. That's what you want to do. You want, especially when you're on the road, you want to keep it close within 8 or 9 points in the last 3 minutes, and then you got to make a run if you can. And you're just hanging on by a thread. I mean, Spo will use all his timeouts, his ATOs and things, keep it close. But, it's tough when you don't really have that extra firepower that they need. But, it'll be a grinded out series.
Yeah, I mean, from Miami's point of view, they just hope Cleveland, being a young team, go and get dinner on South Beach and hang out a little bit for game 3 and 4 in Miami, and then maybe steal 1 or 2 of those. That's probably their best chance. But I highly doubt we'll see a throwback to that Miami team over the last couple of seasons. That's still a series, not against Cleveland. Cleveland are too well oiled at the moment. Celtics Magic, we're both 4-1 in that one. Don't see them really making a series out of it. I think similar problem to Miami for Orlando is just their scoring droughts. Boston just so many weapons, so many places you can go to get a bucket. Orlando much more grindy, much more kind of ugly way of scoring at times. It all rests on Polo to really get them going. But I think this is a pretty turnkey series.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, Boston didn't look great today for sure, but the injuries this year to Wagner and Boncero was tough, and then losing Suggs. They don't really have a penetrating point guard that could be a playmaker, make them, get those guys easy points. They don't have the shooting to stretch the defense enough, and you got to rely on tough contested shots from both Wagner and Paolo. I think it's just tough for Orlando. Look, they're gonna make them earn it. I mean, they were close. For about 2.5 quarters, they were pretty close. In the game, it wasn't an ultimate blowout, but they don't have the offense, in my opinion. Like, they don't have that scorer that could have that combo guard that could really get to the rim and get in the paint and create these easy opportunities for those guys. They played tough. they're using Joseph and Anthony and Anthony Black. They don't really have that guy that could really come in. I think Black. I love Anthony Black. I think is a really one of the better younger guards in the league. But he's gonna. I think being in his first hostile environment in the playoffs, it was tough for him. It looked a little over his head. Probably he's got to sort of recalibrate himself to do to get out there off the bench. But they just don't have that playmaker. They Paulo and Franz, they competed. They played hard today. It just. Yeah, I just don't think they have enough to really hang with it. They might be able to take a game, but I don't think it's going to be that much of a series.
Yeah, and if I would have told you that Jaylen Brown's going to have 16 at bad clips, Tatum's going to have 17 at bad clips, Porzingis is going to have 5 at bad clips, Drew Holiday's going to have 9 at bad clips, you'd probably say that Orlando's going to win. But this speaks to the depth of Boston. Derek White goes 10 for 18, 7 for 12 from 3 and scores 30. And Pritchard has 19 on 6 for 8 shooting. Like they just have so many weapons that can get them going on any given night.
What I worry about long term for Boston in the playoffs is Brown's knee. He's missed 10 games since February. I've heard it's pretty bad. You could tell he doesn't have that explosiveness. There was talk about them resting him this series. So I hope that's not going to be a problem long term for them throughout the playoffs because they really need him. He just didn't have that explosiveness tonight. Didn't look great. But again, he's been off like the last few games of the season. I'm not sure how many games he missed, but he did miss some games down the line as well. And insiders to me tell me that knee, that he's taking injections and things, and that could be a problem, going forward, especially if he's got to cut and do these things. And if he's going to play in a series that's going to be long-winded, and that they're going to need a lot from him, it might be problematic. I don't know. I'm not a doctor and I'm not there every day, but he did definitely, he was grimacing a little bit. You could tell he wasn't at 100%, not even close to it. But they're so deep and they know how to play and they play for each other. They got so much skill at all these positions and they play hard and they play together. So they're going to be a tough beat.
They are. Indiana. I've got Indiana 4, Bucks 3. You have Indiana 4, Bucks 2. It is currently 1-0. Milwaukee were pretty much out of this game at halftime. They were down by 20 plus points. They got it back to about 10 at three-quarter time and then ended up losing. Very well-balanced attack from Indiana. They had multiple scorers in double digits. Siakam, Turner, Nembhard, Halliburton, McConnell, and Mathurin all scored in double digits. The Bucks really only Giannis that kind of showed up with 36 and 12. The rest of their starters, not one scored in double digits. Obviously, Lillard's still out, reportedly back for game 2, game 3. I don't think this changes a lot for them. Maybe bring a bit more offense, but I think Indiana. And this is one of those both teams hate each other playoff series that I like. Mm-hmm. They're already talking shit to each other. There's already some back and forth. Halliburton was going at Lillard while he's in street clothes on the bench, which is hilarious. So I love that. I love these kind of series that have some history in the regular season last year. Famously, the triple-double ball they stole off Jan, all that kind of shit. So where Rick likes to get the ball for a rookie that's played and all those shenanigans. So I love it. I love this kind of animosity, and I think this has a potential to go 7. I think Indiana can get very hot and cold at times, so Milwaukee could grind back into the series, but I don't see Indiana losing it.
No, I don't either. And with this blood clot thing coming back, I mean, I haven't really studied it with players who've had this issue and then came back, and how long did it take them to get really back to normal? I mean, they really don't have the offense. I mean, I saw some stat line of Kuzma's where he went zeros across the board. I think he played like 22 minutes. That's
you're ruining the stat
really
segment.
Tough to do.
You're ruining the stat segment.
No, my fault. I apologize.
No, that's all right.
We'll talk about it, but no, it's just they don't have the offense. They didn't have the offense really all year. With Lillard and without Lillard 100%, Giannis. I mean, Giannis did everything he could. Scored 30 plus, but they just don't have the offense, and they're sort of like the Denver of the East. They keep dwindling the bench every year. They lose a guy or so, and they keep trying to make trades happen. They're pretty active with that, but they just don't have the offense to mess with Indiana. I think this series would be 4-2, 4-1 or 4-2. I don't really see it going 7, but I've seen crazier things happen But yeah, I don't see a path where Milwaukee they could really take this series.
Yeah, I don't either. I just think it's got potential to go 7 just based on Indiana's the way they play.
Sure.
They're very, very hot and cold at times. They can shoot themselves out of games, but
Yeah.
they will need Lillard back to have that opportunity. Final one in the East, Knicks Pistons. I've got Knicks 4, Pistons 2. You've got Knicks 4, Pistons 1. Game 1 has happened. It's 1-0 for New York. I think the scoreline is not reflective of how close this game was. It finished 112 to 123. Detroit win this game for most of the game, and I think New York had to make some big plays in that fourth quarter. Brunson was really, really big. He made some big, big shots for them. Whenever Detroit were in striking distance, Towns made some big plays late as well with 23 and 11. New York, very well balanced. Payne also made some big shots, made a couple of big threes for them in the fourth quarter. But Detroit are going to, I anticipate this series being there'll be a fight at one point. I don't know what game. There's going to be a fight. Game 2, Game 3, Game 4. It's going to happen. Prime candidates are our guy Isaiah Stewart, obviously, but Detroit are physical. They're not going to let New York walk all over them and just kind of cruise through a playoff series. They're going to make them feel it. If they get out of that series, they're gonna be a little banged up because Detroit make you play for it. But Cade Cunningham, not a great performance shooting wise, 8 for 21, but had 12 assists and 6 rebounds. I think they've got a potential to get 1 or 2 games, but New York should control this series pretty easily.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those series where I think every game is going to be pretty close, but I just don't think that Detroit has enough to really string out some wins in the series. They might get 1, they might get 2, but they got to really play perfect basketball to beat New York. And New York's not a great juggernaut team offensively either, but Cade Cunningham has to have one of these like Michael Jordan versus the Boston Celtics back in '86 type series. Like he's got to score 40 a game. I mean, he's got to, from opening tip to the final buzzer, he's got to dominate because they don't really have scorers on that team. They got streaky guys, Hardaway Jr., Tobias Harris, guys that could pop up jump shooters. They don't get to the free throw line. They don't really score. Cade's the only guy that really scores in that team, scorer. So he's got to really dominate. He's got to be able to dominate, not only scoring the ball, getting in the paint, getting to the rim, making shots, but, making sure Harris and Hardaway get easy shots. They got, Doran and Stewart that could, screen, play defense, rough guys up. But, New York, like, I'm not in love with New York, but I think that they got enough. At least they got Towns and Brunson they're real scorers. Then you got, OG and Hart that play hard, and, OG could guard and scores, but I just think Brunson and Towns are going to be tough to really shut down. And then you got all these other guys that can make a shot here and there. So I think it'll be close. I think all these games are going to be close, but I think in the end, New York's always going to have that extra 5 to 8 points that, that's going to sort of set this series apart. That I just don't think Detroit, unless, Cade goes really nuts, I really don't think that this is going to be much of a series. Beasley made Beasley was really good. It was tough, because not Beasley, but Thompson and Doran got foul trouble early first quarter, and that really sort of messed them up a little bit. They need those 2 guys on the floor defensively and their toughness. So that sort of gave New York a little bit of an edge. Brunson was really good. Towns sort of overpowered with his size and ability to score. So, yeah, I just don't see Detroit having enough.
Yeah, their offense dries up at times too and becomes a bit clunky. So I agree with that. One of the best first round series I think we'll see is the Clippers Nuggets series. We both have the Clippers 4-2. Denver has won the first game, so we're behind the 8 ball, but I think this series is going to be a good one. I think there's a lot going on in it. I really like the Clippers. They got some long lineups, bro. They went to a Harden, I think it was Harden, Leonard, Jones Jr., Batum, and I think it was Bogdanovic or Chris Dunn. Just a long, all-switching lineup that caused a little bit of problems. I think they played Ben Simmons at the 5 as well exclusively, which was interesting. No 4 for him. not much offensive production, but he's going to be out there for his defense and just try to slow down Joker a little bit. They're not really playing anybody else. Eubanks didn't get a burn as the backup 5. So I found that interesting. They're going with a lot of length and size on multiple positions. And I think that's going to be interesting over the course. I think the Clippers were in the game. They had a chance to win it. And Denver just got it done late. I mean, I think Westbrook's movement and activity was really good this game. I mean, he was 5 for 17, and you look at it as if, he didn't have the best game statistically, but 8 rebounds, key offensive rebound late, 3 assists. I thought his movement off the ball caused some problems for the Clippers at times. They just lost the body, hit a big 3 for him late. Jokic 29, 12, and 9 played really well. And Murray finally woke up. I mean, his clips weren't awesome. He was 7 for 20, but 21 points, 9 rebounds, 7 assists. If he plays at that level, Denver can be in the mix again. And that's kind of the regular season we didn't see for him. But I think this series is going to be fantastic. Kawhi was pretty solid as well throughout the game. Zubas 21 and 13, and Harden 32 and 11. So the Clippers were right there on the road in Denver. Tough place to win. Only got to get 1 out of 2 on the road, I think, to put yourself into a series. So game 2 is going to be key. But this is a series I'm trying to tune into if I get a chance to be at home.
I mean, for $35 million, can Porter make 2 shots? I'm not asking for a lot, Bogues. I'm asking for 2 shots. You're getting paid $35 million. I mean, it's not too much to ask. But hey, they still got the win, so no, that was good. Look, I think the Clippers are up by like 14 in the first half. I mean, they were playing well early, and just they were moving, stretching the floor, like you said. They had the straight line drives. They had some funky lineups up there. But then. Denver, and that's the thing in the playoffs or any high level game. You get punched in the mouth. You're fine. You settle down. You make good passes, extra passes, a lot of play off the ball. You screen hard. You force guys into tough shots. You just grind that thing out. And like I said, just keep it close. And then you just sort of railroad them through. So, obviously Jokic did his thing, and Murray did play decent. Didn't shoot the ball great, but he definitely was a factor. Westbrook was a factor. They didn't go for a super heavy bench, but they just play hard. Gordon was efficient. They didn't get a lot of production out of Porter, but it is what it is. I thought the Clippers, they didn't do anything terrible. I thought they were good. They were solid. They did what they supposed to do. They got some decent looks. Harden played well early, and they just sort of they couldn't get it. They just couldn't bring it there. But the second, these series, it's all about what type of changes you're going to make for game 2. And I'm sure those guys are going to be well prepared going into game 2, trying to get better shots, trying to force Denver into tough contested shots, get out in the open floor and try to get some easy baskets. I think it'll be a war in this series. I think it's going to be a good series for sure.
Agree with that. Next one, Lakers, Wolves. I unfortunately have Lakers 4, Wolves 2, but after that first game,
it's only one game.
I'm overreacting. You had the Wolves 4, Lakers 3. I had Lakers 4, Wolves 2. But that first game, the Lakers left their defense in the regular season. I mean, it was the one positive out of this, Pro, I think, in that first game. So the Wolves, I think, for those not following it, absolutely demoralized the Lakers 117-95. I don't think it's an adjustment thing going into game 2, Pro. I think this is just going to be JJ Redick's going to show the film of how poor their effort was and how poor their defense was. To me, watching that game, I'm like, there's nothing standing out from X's and O's of like, oh, they should have had this lineup or they should have had this coverage. It was all just effort. It just looked like shit. Like, and look, Minnesota got hot, but they let him get hot because Minnesota were just running the ball back at them, and their transition D was so poor. They were just walking into open threes, and then once they got hot, they were making some tougher ones. I don't know how many times they were going to leave a ball side corner to stunt and give up an open 3 to Naz Reid in the corner. Like, it was just blatant effort stuff that was dumb. So I think that's a pretty easy adjustment, but whether you get that buy-in, the reason why I picked the Lakers is just because historically, Luke has done very well against Rudy Gobert teams, but Minnesota looked really, really good. Edwards looked phenomenal. I think it's going to be a tough ask. The Lakers Luka has 37 and 8. Austin Reeves has 16. LeBron has 19. That was about it. That was it for your double-digit scoring. So the depth just not there when you look at Minnesota, a bit more balanced. 25 from McDaniels, 16 from Randall, 22 from Edwards, and then Nas Reed with a big game off the bench, 23. And they had a bunch of players with 9 points. So I think you're going to be right. I'm calling it early. I'm overreacting early on this series.
You're overreacting.
Nah,
typical ex-player bullshit. Yeah. Nah, fuck that. You're eyes.
I don't know. I just didn't like the way the Lakers looked. I mean, I think they got to bounce back in game 2, but it just looked flat, bro. They didn't. It was just game 1 of the playoffs, and you know just came up with that performance. And this isn't like, hey, if Minnesota got hot and was knocking down step backs and you're like, cool, whatever. Like, but you watch that game, you're like, there was no life. There was no life for the whole game. And
at home.
Yeah, at home. So that's why I'm concerned. It's like, I think they'll come out with better energy and effort, and they should win game 2. But I just didn't like that performance at all, bro.
Yeah, Bogues, the big thing I think Minnesota took advantage of, first of all, three-headed monster with Gobert, Randall, and Reed. I think the size was a little bit of a problem, for LA on both ends of the floor. They didn't really out-rebound them too bad or anything like that, but their size and physicality, especially switching on to guys, it bothered LA just a tad bit. But you got to keep the best you can anyway. Edwards, McDaniels, DiVincenzo, Conley, you got to keep them out of the paint because they multiple times, I mean, probably like 10, 12 times, they got multiple defenders on them in the paint. They dished out, like you said, open three to, you pick your poison. Is it Randall, McDaniel, Nas Reed, guys just making shot after shot after shot. And then their toughness and their size getting second chance points. It was tough. And then they just hung in there and they just made shot after shot. Now, do they make 12 out of 24 threes again? Probably not. But if they're getting open looks in the NBA, those guys can make shots. Nas Reed, it's not like Nas Reed is like, he doesn't shoot threes like Giannis or anything. I mean, the guy's a pretty capable shooter. Edwards, his passing was really good. And not only did he didn't have a great night shooting the ball, but he had 9 assists. I'm not a big assist guy, but he did make good plays and he had good vision and made the right play when he needed to. And that's more important than actual assists. And I thought he was tough. I mean, if you're going to play, it was great. They had something in the telecast. I don't know if you caught it, but they had a player development coach from Minnesota. I don't know the guy's name, but he was given Edwards clips of MJ against Magic in the playoffs, in the finals in 91, I believe. And he was like, hey, if you want to go against the King, you got to, like, how he just went down Magic's throat that playoff series and just went at him. And he was basically saying, look, you want to go at the King, you got to go at the King. You can't be just like there. And you got to be at attack mode. And even though he didn't have a great efficient night, he just attacked all night. It was pretty cool to watch. But it was great to see like Nas Reed and McDaniel. I'm a huge role player guy. Those guys played really well. Gobert actually played well, protected the rim. Cheap shot like a motherfucker. If you watch Gobert, that guy he's king of the cheap shots. He hit Luka, like slapped him in the face. It wasn't blatantly bad.
Randall got was it Randall that got Luka in midcourt as well? Got him pretty good with that.
Yeah, he did. That was a physical play. I looked at it like 7 times.
Yeah, he got him though. He got him.
A cheap shot. He got him hard.
He got him good. He got him good. He got him a nice.
That's
little,
what you got to do.
Nice little cork or Charlie.
You got to knock those guys down.
100%. If you got the opportunity, you got to knock them over. But we'll see how this one goes. Hopefully the Lakers find some life. Speaking of life, Thunder 4, Grizzlies 1 for me. You had them 4-2. This has started very poorly. Look, they're hung over from the plane, and that's the excuse to fly back in, short turnaround, play game 1, earlier start, 131-80. Got some stats on that one shortly, but not much to talk about. This was ugly from the get-go. They were never in the game, and OKC handled their business like a 1 seed should. So that series hasn't started yet for Memphis. Hopefully they realize the playoffs have started and they're in game 2 in a couple of days. We'll see how they bounce back. But I think Memphis will bounce back in game 2. It should be a closer game, but I just don't see them having enough depth challenge. I mean, OKC are just, they're so deep. You know, they've got so many. You bring Wiggins off the bench. He scores 21 in 26 minutes. You know, very well balanced in a blowout. But there's not too much, in my opinion, to analyze of this game other than Memphis' effort.
Oof, Bogues, this one was rough. This one was rough.
I should have moved this one.
There's no
move this one to NBA TV at quarter time.
Bogues, you should have moved this game to Nickelodeon because this fucking game was out of it. I mean, I don't even have this is how fucked up this game was. I don't even have a movie reference for it. It was that fucking bad. I mean, that was ugly. That's just, you know, that you can get glaucoma for watching that fucking game, Bogues. I mean, that was fucking awful. So yeah, that was brutal. So yeah, that's all I got to say about that.
Yep. All right, moving on. Golden State versus Houston on right now. Sengun with a massive, just dunked on Draymond a couple of minutes ago really badly. Houston have started off super red hot. I think, what do we have? 19-12, 3 minutes left in the first. We both have Golden State winning this series, funnily enough. I have the Warriors 4-3. I have this as a 7-gamer. You have it 4-2, so much of a muchness there. I think it's going to be interesting. Look, I think Golden State are the really good team of finding in-series adjustments, and they've historically done a very good job of that. That is why I think that they'll come through and win this. Houston kind of young and dumb, but I think I say that in a nice way. I think that can be an advantage for them. I think that if they win this series is because they really don't care. They just go out and play, but it can also lose them a series playing that way. You know, I think Golden State definitely have the smart side of things. They're going to have some strange lineups. They started Draymond at the 5 today, which was interesting. So they've gone with a much smaller lineup. Jimmy at the 4, which I anticipated if you remember correctly, when they made that trade, I anticipated this lineup would be one of their go-to lineups, Jimmy at the 4 and Draymond at the 5. They didn't start too well. They've balanced out now, but yeah, this has a potential to go 6 or 7. You know, you don't often see most people picking a 7 seed over a 2, which is what has happened. Are we disrespecting Houston too much, Pro, or are we just giving Golden State too much credit?
I have no idea, Bogues. I mean, I watched them a lot, and look, they've got talent. They're very well coached. They're prepared, but their shot selection to me isn't great. I mean, they do bring it every night as far as giving you energy and things like that. But you know, one thing that just doesn't seem like they are is locked into like making right plays in shot selection. Look, during the regular season, that doesn't have to be a huge deal, especially when you're home court. And they played well. They beat a bunch of teams this year. But I do think that Golden State does lock in on certain things. You've got, you know, especially with that 3-headed monster of Steph, Draymond, and Jimmy, you know, Butler playing, just sort of lock in on certain things they got to do. They got shot makers. They play together. I just feel as though that those guys are going to be sort of take advantage of when they need to take advantage of it. They'll keep it close. And I believe those guys down the stretch, I do trust them. I don't trust Houston down the stretch, you know, with making the right decision, making the right reads. And I do think that they love taking tough contested looks. And look, that youngness, that youth, you know, just getting up and down the floor and just showing energy, that's great. But you got to lock in. And they haven't really showed me they can do that on a regular basis. That I do want to see. They still could beat Golden State, no doubt about it. But I just think that the series is going to be really close, and I just trust Golden State down the stretch versus Houston.
Yeah, that's my reasoning as well. They've been there, done that. They've got some winners on that team. They've got a good balance, and they've got that small ball lineup, which has been interesting watching this first quarter in the background. 21-18 right now for Houston. Golden State's clawed back. Golden State's generally stayed smaller. They got posted a little bit, but Houston's staying bigger, which you don't often see, right? Like you try to see teams match with Golden State's going small. They haven't. They've got Adams in there right now at the 5. They played single at times. So a lot of length and size in those lineups. So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. But I think this one's going to be this series for me, and the Clippers-Denver series are my 2 favorite series to watch in the first round of the playoffs. If you're going to watch any, fans out there, watch these ones because they'll both be pretty good. All right, useful or useless, Pro. Only one Memphis starter, pro, had more buckets than turnovers. And that was Ja Morant. More field goals than turnovers. One player for the whole of the Memphis Grizzlies. Useful or useless?
Useless. But useful for tomfoolery's sake, but useless that, that game was such a shit show. It just, I don't know. Maybe you find it useful, but I don't know.
It's a risk,
That game,
though.
I don't think there was anything.
Only one player had more field goals and turnovers for a game.
It's a good stat. It's a good stat for sure.
Yeah. You don't see that very often. I'd love to know. Didn't say the last time that was done, but probably not charted very often. But that's wild, man. So that's crazy.
The only positive about that game is it ended. That's the only positive that happened out of that game. It fucking ended.
It stopped. All right. Speaking of Kyle Kuzma, it was Easter, and they said Kyle Kuzma was hunting goose eggs. 0 points, 0 rebounds, 0 assists, 0 steals, 0 blocks, 0 from 5 from the field, 0-2 from 3, 0-2 from free throw line in 21 minutes. That's the most minutes played by any player in a 0-0-0-0-0 game in the last 10 years, bro. Useful or useless?
It sounded like my dating profile evaluation from my wife when we first met, but yeah, very useful, Bogues, for sure. That fucking stat line had more O's than a box of Cheerios.
That is the Tony Snell Award, the official Tony Snell Award for Kyle Kuzma.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
They need him. They need much more from him to have any chance in this series. We speak about Dame Lillard, but they made that trade, got rid of Middleton, who was a steady, solid scorer for him, hoping that Kuzma can, Kuzma much more erratic, but a guy that can be erratic to a 40 every now and then. He's going to need to bring much more than zeros. They need 15 or 20 from him at times in this series to keep them in the series if they got any chance. Backdoor fake news, pro. What do you got?
Well, Bogues, I got a, I don't know if no, you know what? I'll throw this in the fact and fake news. Scottie Pippen Jr. was a -39. Fact or fake news, that is the lowest plus minus in the 21st century.
The lowest.
Lowest, like the worst.
In the playoffs
in the
or just in any game?
In the playoffs. In the playoffs. Trent, stop looking it up for him too. Fucking let this guy sink or swim in his own.
Just trying to think of all the blowouts over the last 21st century. I'll go fact, bro.
Wrong. Okay. Desmond Bain has it. His teammate. Okay. -51.
Oh, I should have looked up just that stat sheet.
Yeah.
-51. Wow.
The -51. That
and they lost by 51.
Unbelievable.
Yep.
Yeah.
Wow.
-51. Desmond Bain.
Yeah, that game.
Congratulations.
That game is a prime example of why there should be a mercy rule in the NBA at some point. I don't know whatever it is, third quarter, 6 minutes left. If it's at 40, we just call it, let the fans go home, refund 50% of their ticket.
Yeah. Memphis needs to spend the week in China and playing in that league for going -51.
Get some confidence.
I mean, that's a rough one, man. That's a rough one.
It is.
They gotta I'd be having them watch Rocky 4 for fucking 3 days straight. I mean, they need something.
Yeah.
Last one, Bogues. Fact or fake news, there are more current NBA coaches named Mike than there are Steve in the NBA right now. Fact or fake news?
Well, my Budenholzer got fired, right? So
a lot of Mikes got fired this year.
Yeah, they all got fired this year. So how many Steves are there? They're all fired, aren't they? So I'm gonna go with more Steves.
Yeah. Every Mike in the league, head coach wise, got fired this year. So
that's a good one.
How about that? Yeah. Every Mike in the league got fired. That's fucked up.
Yeah. Wow.
That's fucked up.
Yeah, Steve. And there's only one Steve, right?
Yeah, Steve Kerr.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I just wanted to throw that Mike in there somehow. I just saw that on Instagram. Now I could have got bamboozled by NBA Central again, but that was pretty good.
And that's why you're why you're not in the league, evidently.
Yeah,
Mike.
Yeah, I ruined it for everybody. I ruined it for everybody.
All right, bro. Thanks.
That's it.
We'll see you next week for some more playoff stuff.
Absolutely, fellas. Hey, good luck. Let me know what's up, and yeah, we'll see you next week.
All right, later. All right, just wrapping up with some NBL stuff. Not a whole lot to report. Obviously, we're in free agency, but the NBL/Larry have sold their ownership shares in the Brisbane Bullets to local businessman Ben Hahn. I believe Northern New South Wales identity, lives down that way. It was interesting to note the NBL social pages posted that the NBL/Larry no longer hold any shares in NBL clubs, only to have that post be deleted off the face of the earth a day later, because I don't think it's the entire truth. For anyone following that was quite interesting that it got deleted pretty quickly. I think they still hold shares in a club or two that are vesting over time to the current ownership purchases of those teams, meaning they still hold shares but have agreed to move them on in the future. So the NBL PR media team jumped the gun a little bit, and they technically still do own shares in NBL clubs. Free agency, Trent. So New Zealand's new strategy is basically to sign anyone who's from New Zealand. And I don't hate it. I don't hate the strategy. I think having locals is important. That's the one advantage they have over Australian teams, is the New Zealand bloodline. They can get first dibs on all those guys. They brought back Liafa, Low, and Tarangi so far. So I don't mind it. I think it's, look what's in your backyard, try to develop what's in your backyard, albeit a lot of those guys are veteran players, but don't think it's the worst thing in the world.
Yeah, and when you hire a guy like Dylan Boucher,
yep.
who, was a part of those teams as a Kiwi himself,
Yep.
and the identity of a lot of those Breakers teams that were successful was investing in local New Zealand talent, and a lot of those guys like Tarangi and Shea and them have won championships already as real young guys as part of those Breakers teams. So I like the direction they're going in. Like you said, it's an advantage they have that they probably haven't tapped into in their most recent years. You got a lot of guys still overseas like your Yanni Wetzels and your Finn Delaney's who could add a lot of value to an NBL team, and who have played for the Breakers before but became disinterested due to how things were handled and stuff like that. So I think for them as a starting point, it's a great starting point, because you kind of fortify your bench, you get a good idea of like who you've got as your role players, and then you can go out and, try and re-sign your Jackson Cartwrights or bring in a big time import like what Bruton was for them during those 3-peat years. So yeah, I love how they've gone about it in this offseason.
Yeah, and probably some mates rates as well.
Exactly.
A lot of these guys will be going home where they're from, and probably get a nice little discount as well on the contract, which is great. It's great for them. So we'll watch that space. Ben Ayre has signed with Tassie. Sunday Detch has gone to Perth. He was with Perth early in his career, correct?
Yeah, so he was a DP there for 2 years, won a championship, and then went off to Illawarra when LaMelo Ball came around.
That's right, yep. So he's back. They re-signed Windler as well, which is a good signing. I thought he was very, very good for Perth. And Tom Wilson, who former teammate of mine, my first year with the Kings, Tom Wilson was there, former Tigers product. Didn't get a whole lot of opportunity under Andrew Gaze, became a little frustrated, and ended up becoming I think it's called Category B rookie in the AFL, where they can poach you from another sport and they get a lot more money than just a regular AFL rookie would. He went and tried his hand in the AFL so that would have been 2019 to now. That hasn't panned out. He's now having another crack at the NBL. Melbourne United have given him a chance. Looks good in NBL 1. Really putting up some big numbers down there in Victoria. He's a bucket. And when we had him with Sydney, I was trying to get Gazy to give him a bit more minutes, because he can really shoot the ball and really fill it up. Defensively wasn't there yet, and his body wasn't great. Was okay. Now that he's gone to the AFL system, he's come back looking ripped and in really, really good shape. Kind of obviously they put you through some different conditioning there in the AFL, but I like the shape that he's in, and he is a bucket. He can get very, very hot and drop some points. So it will be interesting to see, if anyone's going to get something out of him as Team Vickerman in that system, and playing behind CG and seeing how he goes about things is probably the greatest veteran you can have if you're a 2-guard Australian shooter that can fill it up quickly. Watch and learn from one of the best that's done in the NBL. So I like that pick up from Melbourne United.
It's an interesting one, because there's not a lot to lose. Like, you've probably signed him for not a lot of money. He's coming in with something to prove. So you might have just got a legitimate NBL starter and you're not even aware of it yet, because he could come in and you look at his length and size, he's going to be good on the boards. He's obviously, if you're looking what he's doing for the Tigers in the South, can score in loads. So it's going to be very interesting to see how they've used him, because of how depleted United's bench was after these last 2 championship runs, whether or not they've just plugged in another guy that's going to be able to put in similar numbers to your Travers and these sort of guys that they've had previously.
Yeah, cheap risk as well. And like, he's in good shape, hasn't really had any injuries, and can still play. So, yeah, being away from the game for 5 years, we'll see how he goes in the pro level, adjusting. But in NBL 1, doesn't look like he's missed a beat, but it is the NBL 1. No disrespect, but it is still a minor league, and he is still a professional. So just be a matter of, I think, bringing in a young guy to keep their big minute guards honest, making sure that they're doing the right things. Otherwise, we'll come in and take some minutes. So it's a really low risk, high reward scenario for Melbourne United, and I think they'll get something out of him. And he's a good dude. Never any issues from time when we had him around us. Frustrated he wasn't playing, and rightfully so, and ended up going and coming back. So it's good for the NBL, and that's pretty much it free agency wise, I believe. NBL wise, not a whole lot more going on there. And we have the Boomers series coming up in May against New Zealand. I know they're trying to bring that back. We've spoken about it a little bit previously. They're trying to bring back that rivalry, and I think it's important. New Zealand's always a competitive team, that we should bring back that annual 2 or 3 game series, even if it doesn't mean anything for qualifications. I don't think it's the worst thing in the world. And then beyond that, I think there's the Asia Cup coming up in August, so that'll be interesting to see how all that pans out and the selections and whatnot. And then we're back into an NBL season.
Yeah, I love the Trans-Tasman series, especially in these real lull periods in between major events. I think they're important. And you look at the teams that both New Zealand have kind of announced half their team, Australia have announced their teams. There's some real good talent on display as well. So it's not like we're getting a C or a D tier team. It's both teams are bringing like talent to the table, and for it to be a 3-game series and not just a single hit out as well is like great for basketball fans, especially when we're not going to see the Boomers play until August and then post that till 2027.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just something that's was always a big draw card basketball wise when I first started with the Boomers. And I think it's good, even if it is kind of your B team or your second string guys. I think the rivalry presents itself, and you still see some high quality basketball. So hopefully they'll continue that on. Good job by Basketball Australia and Basketball New Zealand figuring that out, and hopefully continue some into the future. That's it this week for NBL. We'll see you all next week with some more NBA and playoff chat.